We're back here on Football Fridays. Will Altoff and Luis Diaz taking you up till 6 o'clock talking all things football. And today we are joined by a couple of special guests. You know these guys better as the Fish Tank. We've got O.J. McDuffie and Seth Levitt, and they have got quite an amazing little documentary. I shouldn't even say little because it's such a big production from what I've seen.
I was loving amazing. And then
right? But they're doing a documentary about the 30th anniversary of Dan Marino's comeback from his Achilles injury in 1993, that first game back in 1994. And from what I've seen, it is quite the project you guys are putting together. Talking to a lot of people about this, including Dan and a number of other players. OJ, you were there. Seth, how did you guys decide to move and do such a big project like this?
Yeah, I'm kind of questioning that decision at this point. No, we're pretty pumped by just to share this story. It is indeed, and thank you, it's iconic.
Yeah.
It is an iconic moment in team history and in Dan's history. I love 30 for 30. I love sports documentaries. I know Juice loves anything sports. If I think there were two people outside playing Frisbee, and he was, so.
They don't know how to throw them, man. They definitely don't know how to catch them.
Because they don't realize how important the wrist is to Frisbee. You don't know. So, rookies.
So he's all in. He's coaching them up. Somehow he's good at everything that he does. But no, we love sport, and boy, is there anything that we love more than our Miami Dolphins. This is a rich history that this team has. And so the late, great Jason Jenkins challenged us a couple years ago. Hey, I love everything you do. We're going to continue to do it. But how can you evolve? How can you guys grow? We know there's so much more there in the tank, so to speak. And what could you do next? I came up with a couple different ideas, and we both really loved this one. And it was to do a 30 for 30 style documentary on iconic moments in team history. And I didn't want to go to the easy go-tos. 72 Dolphins,
too easy.
Nothing better than perfect, but too easy, right, Juice? And then 85 Bears. A lot of people go to that one. But this game, to me, there were games that meant more to the Dolphins' season than this game. But I think it was Dan Marino's finest performance. And when you think of all of the buildup that there was before this game, this was the one.
So you kind of teased it. Does this mean that this is not going to be the last documentary-style project you guys work on?
What a great question.
Hey, that's the boss. So
he's looking at me. So I am not the boss. We would love to do more. We actually there's games that we've targeted. We would love to do more. But I think we got to get through this one. We have to prove that there's an audience for it, right? And I think there is. So far, the reaction has been spectacular. The fact you guys let us in the building here was great, and it's not even a Sunday, so we appreciate it.
Always welcome, fellas.
The air is on. Everything is nice.
The air is on.
Hold on. The boss is listening. Guys, quiet down. You're going to shut down the show.
We don't need that. We definitely don't need that. But no, I mean, we would love to do more. There are so many stories to tell. And we're talking to Travis Wingfield about this. The great thing about being a Miami Dolphins fan is you never know, and it's so cool, the season's about to start, you never know when you're going to walk in that stadium and you're going to leave with a memory that's going to last for the rest of your life. Right. You never know when that's going to happen.
It's kind of like having kids where you want the first one. The first one sounds amazing. And then you have the first one, you're like, I don't know if I'm going to have anymore. I feel like that's what I got from the documentary. It's like,
I'm not the decision
this one's
maker.
Great. We love to
finish
on a high note, right?
Yeah. I guess to ride on that analogy there, I'm not the decision maker, right? There's somebody else that's going to ultimately make that decision.
There's a wife that's got to deal with
everything.
Much. Okay, got it.
There you go. The Fish Tank Iconic, The Comeback. It premieres Tuesday, September 3rd, 7 o'clock on the Miami Dolphins YouTube channel. Seth Levitt, O.J. McDuffie, they are the Fish Tank, and they are putting this documentary together. And, Juice, I've got you. In that game, 1 catch, 21 yards.
Watch yourself.
3 kick returns for 69 yards, and a punt return for 8 yards.
All right.
Yeah. Nice.
Well, the punt return is the problem. But go ahead, Will. I got something to say about that.
I think he's done.
I just want to know, Juice, because you were there. You were in your second year, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Correct. That's correct.
The vibe there for this game, everybody anticipating Dan's comeback. What was it like just being in that?
Yeah, it was pretty incredible, man. I talk about it a lot because, the fact that the Miami Dolphins were in the AFC Championship game in 1992, and they were a really good team, great defense, young defense at that point. They just had Troy Vincent and Marco Coleman to that team, and so they were really good. So coming in '93, we really thought that was going to be the team that could really get them over the hump. And for me, you lose Mark Duper, Mark Clayton, but you had Irvin Fryer, myself, Mark Ingram, Terry Kirby. We had all these guys that we brought in to enhance this offense that was already pretty good the year before, but we need to get over the hump. And I thought that was the team we had. And for Danny to get hurt, in that Cleveland game, early in the season, it was tough. And we still played well, and then kind of at the end we kind of fizzled because Dan Marino's a guy that kind of gets you over gets you through that last month. It's really Marino time. And we didn't have that Marino time. Coming back the next season, we didn't know what to expect. You expect so much out of Dan Marino, and you get there. I got there as a rookie in '93, and then you get there in '94. You're like, all right, well, we'll see if Danny's still Danny. Tough offseason, tough rehab. I think he had an extra surgery or two to try to fix the thing, and the preseason wasn't very good. But man, to be out there in that game, Will and Lewis, it was for one, it was a disastrous field. The field was absolutely terrible.
Really?
That's why I wanted to tell you about the one catch you tried to clown me on just now.
No, I'm just.
That's a 20-yard game.
It was a nice game, though, right?
OJ
Nice
was
game,
there.
right?
Juice was
Nice
there.
game.
He played, man. That's a big deal.
He didn't affect the game at all, but he played.
Catch average is nuts.
Right. I wish I could have stayed right there with it. But but the one punt return, I got hurt in that game because of the mud. And so that was one thing that we were worried about more than anything, footing and everything. So I got hurt at that point in the game. But Danny, being out there in that mud was stellar, man. He loved it. I mean, he really took on the challenge out there. And obviously the results are what they are, but he was so pumped, man. Just to see him out there, it was impressive.
You guys are here for the Fish Tank Iconic big documentary that's coming out. But for those of us that are just learning about your podcast, which is people that live under rocks, especially if you're a Dolphins fan, you guys have shared so many great stories from so many Dolphins players. Is this your favorite story that you've shared? And if not, what is a story that you've heard that you might, if the wife approves, deserves another iconic style documentary?
You're looking at me, huh?
Yeah.
I'm looking at
Well,
both.
well, so like favorite stories typically are things we probably can't talk about on terrestrial radio. Like Kim Bocamper tells a Bob Kuchenberg story that is one of the greatest stories that has ever been told on the Fish Tank. And there's so many, 180 something shows now.
I think we're
at this
close
point.
to 200, aren't we?
I
saw 199 at one point.
Man,
So
I
this
need
could
to
be
go back and count.
iconic. Could be 200 for.
Could we time that up any better? That would be really cool.
That's awesome.
But as far as iconic moments, iconic games, I mean, there's the one that that I would love to do next, if we did it, would be the game in 2001 against the Raiders, the first game back post September 11th. The entire country shut down for obvious reasons, but then the country galvanized together, and sport was such an important part of that. And so that storyline is incredible. The Dolphins are being led by a quarterback from New York at that time, and he ends up having that hero moment where he dives across the goal line and ends up on the cover of Sports Illustrated pumping his fist. And so there's unbelievable stories there, but there's just so many of them. This team has a rich history.
Yeah.
In the recovery process for Dan in 1993 has to be so much different than, say, what Aaron Rodgers did last year. So,
well, he didn't do any ayahuasca, from what
that's what
I didn't see it in the teaser trailer, but maybe it's in the bonus features. But I don't think he did any ayahuasca.
I think you're right.
Oh, okay, all right, sorry.
I think you're right.
But to come back, it was such a different injury 30 years
Oh, my
ago
God.
to come back from, and that's such a big deal for him to come back. And reading about how he had an atrophied calf because he hasn't been able to rehab it and build back up the strength in that leg, and it's just such a different time, and to be able to come back and have such a huge game just proved this is Dan the man. This is the guy.
Yeah, and I think Seth has said it best that this is a decade. This is Dan's 10th or 11th year in the league.
Right.
And so he had already had some other problems that he was dealing with.
Right.
And the fact that he had that on top of it, it took Danny like 2 hours to get dressed with so many braces and, and sleeves and stuff that he had to put on. And then you have to add this injury on as well. And so, yeah, a lot has changed. I think a lot has been learned from Danny's injury. We all feel the same way. I feel like a lot has learned from my foot injury, and guys in medicine and technology, everything changes. And I think Danny's injury has helped a lot of other people out. And I think that no matter what, it's an injury that guys can come back from and recover from. We've seen it now. We'll see how Aaron Rodgers recovers, and we'll see how hell, how Jalen Phillips recovered.
Right.
We got some guys
Yes.
that have had these injuries. We'll see how they recover now.
Jalen looks great.
Hoping
by
that
the way.
guy in New York doesn't recover that well.
I hope it's
Yeah,
bad.
I mean, I don't want him to
okay.
walk. I want him to walk and be a human, but
Right.
I don't want him to. I don't want him
You're
to play
okay if he
quarterback.
stinks up the joint and they go 2-15. Yeah, I hear you there. But and I'm glad you asked about it because this isn't just telling a story, or if we ask the question in a normal Fish Tank episode and you get an answer and you talk about it for a few minutes, but we did a real deep dive into this game and everything surrounding it. So the injury is kind of a character in the story, right? The field that OJ
Right.
talked about was a character in the
Yes.
story. The shoe that Danny had to wear, and all of these things are discussed in this documentary. And we talked to Tony Egos, who was the equipment manager at the time. He talks about having to use a screwdriver
screwdriver,
to get mud out of Danny's cleats in between every series. Talked to Harvey Green, who was my old boss and the PR director at the time. We talked to Ralph Stringer, Dan's business manager, he said, hey, Danny still can't do, he can't stand up on that. He can't do a toe raise on that foot because it never healed the way that you would hope
Wow.
that it would. But he had to find other ways to do it. And 473 yards and 5 touchdowns later,
Did all right.
he figured it out.
Right?
He figured it out.
I mean, I guess that's nothing like one catch for 21 yards, in my opinion. But
Wow.
Well, I contribute some.
hey,
Hey,
little
you played.
bit.
that's
None of
almost
us
50
played.
yards
None
without
of us
juice.
played. The Fish Tank
great
Iconic,
point.
the comeback, it premieres Tuesday, September 3rd. That is next Tuesday, 7 o'clock on the Dolphins YouTube channel. I did want to ask, now I don't want you guys to spoil anything, but I imagine there are
The
things
Dolphins
that you
won
learned.
the game.
They won. Yes. All right. Fins up. I imagine there are things that you guys learned doing this that you were unaware of, even OJ playing with Dan.
Yeah. I tell you, just hearing all the other guys, the other interviews, like Seth talked about. I mean, we've got equipment managers, we got media guys, we've got reporters, we got former players, and all their different perspectives are great about it.
Yes.
Because you just never know how they viewed everything and what their role was in this whole thing. I wish we could have interviewed the field.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The field should have been interviewed as well, and it didn't
I
want
should have thought of that.
That would've been
It didn't
good.
act right.
Why'd you
but-
suck?
Next
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Next one.
But there
The
are some
dirt is
really
gone,
good-
though.
Yeah,
That infield dirt is
Thank
gone
goodness.
now.
Thank
Right.
goodness. But yeah, definitely some really good perspectives on the whole thing. And, from mine to TK's, Terry Kirby was incredible. It was a lot of fun just hearing what they had to say because, every time we get on the Fish Tank, man, we get a wow moment. We get all these moments that, wow, I didn't know that about, I didn't know that. But then, so you hear these guys talk, and now we understand how they felt coming back and how they felt about the game.
Yeah, and we've gotten this far, Juice, and we haven't even mentioned Irving Fryer.
Correct.
I mean, Dan threw for all those yards and those touchdowns. Irving Fryer had 5 catches for 200-plus yards and 3 of those touchdowns.
Yeah.
And he did it all in the second half. And Irv, you want to talk about a great storyteller. So it was okay?
I mean, it's not. It's not 1 for 21.
It wasn't.
It's not 69 return yards.
They're never coming back.
It's
Come
not
on.
69 return
Come
yards.
on.
Nice. He could have got 70, but he was like, nah,
Yeah.
I want the 69.
That's it. Leave it right there.
So-
Leave it right there.
Yeah, so as I was saying, Irving Fryer, the Reverend Irving Fryer, speechless here. This is great.
Yeah.
Loving Football Fridays. But Irv was incredible that day. He was incredible in this. You talk about learning things that are new. The conversation that he had with Danny, the moment that he had, him talking about what the primary receivers on that route did and what they should have done and didn't do when the ball went to him in 4th and 5. It was just, there were so many things that we either heard for the first time or heard it and saw it through a different lens. And that's what we're trying to accomplish.
So awesome. The Fish Tank Iconic, the comeback story of Dan Marino's comeback from an Achilles injury, 1994, that first game of the season versus the Patriots. It premieres Tuesday night, 7 o'clock on the Dolphins YouTube channel, and it was put together by the Fish Tank. Seth Levitt and OJ McDuffie, they are here joining us. Tell everybody where they can catch your podcast and follow you on socials.
I mean, the free iHeartRadio app for
right.
sure.
There
You
it is.
definitely,
I love
you
the
definitely
plug.
can find it there.
Perfect.
But yeah, anywhere that you're doing your streaming, and we're at the Fish Tank 81 on all of our social channels. I left out one guy, and I better mention him because as much as OJ and I are enjoying all of this, Chris Clark was the editor, and he co-wrote and directed this with me. And this thing doesn't happen without Chris Clark, so I need to shout him out. And Will, you know it. Now we get to hear your voice all the time, but can you imagine what a disaster our post-game radio show would really be if Will wasn't working all that magic behind the board on those days? So I think, you guys who are doing those things, doing that work, it gives us an opportunity to tell the story we want to tell. We have to shine a light on those guys.
Okay.
Comes together in the end.
And you guys really do get the best.
I know.
And so, yeah, check them out, Fish Tank Podcast, and anywhere you find podcasts, inclling the IR Radio app, signs our checks, whatever.
Really looking forward to
This
it.
guy's so corporate, man.
Good. Keep it
Hey,
going.
Will, we will be live tweeting during the episode as well.
Oh,
Tuesday
awesome.
night. So
Join us.
Very
join
cool.
You guys
So
get on
everybody
it,
can
chop it up
follow
with us.
along, make comments, and discuss it with these guys. That's awesome stuff. The Fish Tank Iconic, the comeback, coming your way Tuesday night. Lewis and I are going to be back on the other side. Seth, OJ, thanks for coming in today, guys.
Appreciate you guys having us.
This is Football Fridays on Fox Sports 940.